In 1992, the voice of Anthrax got a phone call that ended his career in the biggest thrash band on the planet. No warning tour, no farewell record, just gone. For most singers, that's the kind of blow you don't come back from. Careers have ended over less. So what do you do when the band that made you famous suddenly doesn't need you anymore? If you're Joey Belladonna, apparently you go work on a horse farm. Stick around because the story goes from mucking out stables to a scrappy solo record that split the Anthrax fan base right down the middle, and decades later, even got an apology out of his old bandmates. Let's start with a horse farm because it's honestly one of the weirdest footnotes in thrash metal history. After getting the boot from Anthrax, Joey and his wife Krista landed jobs at what he described as a pretty well-known writer's facility. We're not talking a side hustle here. This place was massive. Joey's talked about how it took him 2 to 3 full days just to weed whack the perimeter on the property. 3 days on foot with a weed whacker. He's admitted flat out that he could never actually finish his daily task list before his shift ended. The place was just too big. Now here's the part that matters for understanding where his head was at. He didn't take the job because he was broke. It just fell into his lap. And by his own account, he genuinely enjoyed learning the trade. His day-to-day was ground maintenance, cutting grass, landscaping for hours, plus actual horse care, grooming, feeding, mucking out stalls, helping trainers work with animals. And Joey said the physical grind of it, plus being around the animals, was therapeutic. After the whiplash of getting fired from a band he'd fronted for nearly a decade, this was his way of centering himself. He even joked that one of the horses might end up inspiring a song someday. Keep that image in your head. The guy with one of the most recognizable voices in thrash metal, quietly grooming horses in upstate New York. We'll come back to that, whether the horse ever got his song. But Joey wasn't just going to disappear into farm life forever. And by 1993, the gears were returning on something bigger, his own band. The whole thing kicked off humbly in his basement. Before any label was involved, Joey set up a home recording rig and started writing with a small crew. Guitarist Paul Crook, who did go out to play with Meatloaf and even circle back to Anthrax later, bassist Paul Mochi, and drummer Jeff Tortora. The lineup spent months together and cranked out something like 17 demo tracks. And stylistically, this was a hard left turn from Anthrax. Instead of rapid-fire thrash riffing, these songs leaned melodic, more hard rock than Pit Starter. Joey's always had a massive tenor range, and here he finally had room to show off his influences like Journey and Rush. Instead of burying that range under a wall of downstroke guitars, he did something different. Those original basement demos never made the final album, but years later Joey actually released them as a rare double CD called Artifacts, so if you're a completist, that material is out there. By late 1994, it was time to actually record a debut for Mausoleum Records, and the original basement lineup had scattered. Schedules, life, usual reasons bands fall apart before they even start. So Joey did something interesting. Instead of chasing bigger names, he went local. He recruited musicians right out of his hometown of Syracuse, New York. Guitarist Darren Scott, bassist John Hamilton, and drummer Scott Schroeder. Darren Scott ended up co-writing 2 brand new songs for the record, Blunt Man and Mixed Emotions, but a lot of the album's actual musical bones still trace back to those original basement sessions with Paul Crook. The result was 1995's self-titled debut, Belladonna, and it was a deliberate statement. This was the mid-90s, grunge and industrial metal were eating the charts alive, and Joey went the complete opposite direction, straight-up 80s style American thrash and power metal. The mix put his vocals right up front, the instruments pulled back and let that voice do the heavy lifting. Musically, it traded Anthrax's frantic speed thrash for a chunkier mid-tempo riffs and big sing-along choruses, and old-school working-class metal vibe. And the album cover even drew a wink at longtime fans, painting Joey as a Native American, which is a direct nod to the Anthrax song Indians. As far as tracks go, the opener Power Trip hits hard with aggressive rhythm work and a chorus built to stick in your head. Blunt Man leans a little more groove-oriented. Rob You Blind is probably the closest thing to the record to classic 80s heavy rock. in Injun is the one that plays most directly to the old Anthrax formula, a clear nod to where Joey came from. Now here's the catch. Mausoleum Records didn't exactly throw up promotional muscle behind this thing. No radio singles, no big budget videos, so nothing charted. What the band did have was the road. Joey took his new Syracuse lineup out to clubs and regional venues, mixing in the solo material with classic Anthrax anthems to keep the crowds happy. And remember that horse I mentioned earlier, the one Joey joked might inspire a song someday? As far as I can tell, it never happened. No horse-themed deep cut, no secret tribute buried on the B-side. Sometimes the joke in an interview is just a joke. The horse remains tragically uncredited. But as for the Belladonna debut, how did it land? Critically, it was a mixed bag. Reviewers respected the production and generally praised Joey's voice. Outlets pointed out his range and fully intact and fully unshackled from major label expectations. But the backing band took some hits. Critics from places like Anthrax magazine and Metal Observer called the Syracuse musicians a kind of generic second-rate thrash foundation and pointed out the guitar solos were thin, missing that air guitar-inducing spark thrash fans wanted. Retrospective reviews, like from No Life to Metal, know the songwriting blurs together because much of it sat in the same mid-tempo pocket. Fans were a different story, and honestly, a more divided one. There have been rumors floating around before the release that Joey left Anthrax wanting to go soft, Journey-style arena pop. The sound pretty definitely killed that rumor. People came through saying that Joey's metal through and through. For die-hard 80s Anthrax purists who weren't thrilled with the grungy direction Anthrax took on Sound of White Noise with John Bush, this record became kind of a what-if, a glimpse of what classic Anthrax might have sounded if they'd stayed the course. But even fans who liked it mostly agreed on one thing. It was missing that specific chemistry Joey had with Charlie Benante and Scott Ian. You can put a great voice on songs, but you can't fake a decade of creative shorthand. And what did Anthrax themselves think of all this? Pretty much nothing. Publicly, at least, the mid-90s, Scott Ian and Charlie Benante were fully focused on building Anthrax's new identity around John Bush. And when reporters brought up Joey during the press cycle for Stomp 4 for 2, they mostly just didn't engage. They viewed his solo record as a throwback to the clean tenor thrash sound they were actively trying to move past, convinced that grungy direction was the right call for that era. Relations were genuinely fractured. This wasn't just professional distance, it was a real freeze-out. Fast forward after Joey rejoined Anthrax for good in 2010, and the tone completely changed. In 2018, Charlie Benante openly admitted the band handled the whole era badly, saying they'd been arrogant and ignorant, surrounded by yes-men who never told them to pump the brakes. Scott Ians said something similar in his own interviews and his autobiography, that firing Joey back in '92 was a product of his own immaturity, and that instead of giving Joey room to grow with the band, he forced a lineup change out of impatience. Neither of them ever came out and said the solo album itself was great, but both admitted the way they treated Joey and his solo years afterward was a mistake. So that's the Horse Farm, the Basement Demos, the scrappy Syracuse lineup that became Joey Belladonna's first shot at going in alone. But this wasn't the end of the solo run, not even close. Coming up next, we're heading back into the main Anthrax discography with Volume 8 covering The Threat Is Real, and then circling back to Joey's world for his follow-up solo record, Spells of Fear. So if you want to see where both of those stories go next, make sure you're subscribed, because it only gets weirder from here. Check out the playlist that should be appearing on the screen right now. It is The Story of Anthrax. I'm telling the whole story from the beginning, everything from Anthrax and some adjacent bands such as Stormtroopers of Death and the Joey Belladonna solo work. So I'll be doing all of that. I want to get it done before the new one comes out, which I'll probably finish before. But anyway, thanks for watching. See you in the next one.